Welcome back to Empowerment with Dr. Lawrence Salone. I am your host, Dr. Lawrence Salone, and today I'm excited about the things that we're going to talk about. Performance has been at the top of my mind, atop of my agenda for the past 20 years. And what we're going to talk about today, though, is a different aspect of performance. It's, in fact, what stops us from performing at our best in our jobs, with our relationships, in our personal goals. It really boils down to three things. There are three things that stop us from hitting our goal. Now, we're going to take a deeper dive into each of those things, but just to list out what they are, there are our pride, our passions, and our fears. Our pride, passions, and fears keep us from hitting our goals consistently and when we need to hit them. So let's take a deeper dive in this episode of Empowerment with Dr. Lawrence. We're going to jump in right in. When you think about pride, how does pride stop you from achieving your best? Well, simply put, when you are operating in pride, it's all about you. It's how this makes me feel or what they said to me and what I get out of this. And nobody cares. Every goal that I've accomplished, meaningful goals that I've accomplished with other people. And that's important. No matter whether I was in Iraq and we needed to go and train the first Iraqi army, I didn't do that by myself. I did that with a team. The beauty of having a team is that they see perspectives that you don't. You can bring your individual talents to this goal. They bring their individual talents. And when you mesh, when there's a meshing, then there's a protection. There is an accountability. There's a higher purpose. Typically, when you're operating in a team, the goal overshadows our individual achievements. So when we see people, when I see people, when you see people operating in pride, we want to take a step back. Because if I'm putting my all into this group project, and we've all had group projects in college, right? If I'm putting my all into this and you very randomly show up and such and so forth, it changes the dynamics of the group and we don't perform better. We don't perform anywhere near what we need to perform. Why? Because somebody is operating with the big I, little you. That's something I heard growing up, the big I, little you. What that means is it's all about me. You don't matter. So when we look at the things to stop us from accomplishing our goals, pride is the first thing that comes to mind. Now, you can look back at your careers, your relationships, when you've had a disproportionate look at who you are or your contributions to whatever it was that you were trying to accomplish. If it became too much about you, those things don't tend to last as long. Some of the best teams that I've been on, we checked our ego at the door. Can you check your ego? So if you're not accomplishing your goals, let's start with, am I too big in the picture that we're trying to paint? And chances are, if you are, you're drowning out other voices that you need in order to accomplish your goals. The second thing that's keeping us from accomplishing our goals are our passions. Funny story. When I was fresh out of college, I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I wanted to stay in the city that I was in, and that was the job that I took. I took the first job that came in a great organization, by the way. Those guys hustle more than anybody you could ever imagine. But I remember I wanted to get promoted, and you had to do this test, and your numbers had to be good to do this test and so forth. And we would try to sell you your collision damage waiver. I remember this like it was yesterday, right? So selling this collision damage waiver, if you did that, you made money for the branch and you looked good, and it bode well for you as you were trying to go and put your packet in to become promoted. Well, it was the evening and we had to, at Enterprise, you had to go and pick up people. And if you were picking up somebody, the chances are you had a great chance that you're not going to sell the collision damage waiver, such and so forth. Well, it was me and a young lady in the office at the time, and at night I had her, now you should go do it, and so forth. And so I sent her to go and pick up this customer. And then I was trying to, get this individual that we knew typically, rent cars on the weekend and wanted to get the collision damage waiver. I was so worried about my passion. There's kind of a little bit of pride in here too, being all about me, but I was so focused on my goal, hitting my goal, hitting, my numbers so I could get promoted, my passion, because I saw myself as successful. Did I put my coworker in danger going to go pick up someone? We didn't know if they were male or female. It was a fleet customer. She picked this person up at night. Now, thankfully, nothing happened. But when you think about that in retrospect, my passion for my goal kept me from operating in an environment. I mean, maybe I should have gone and picked that person up. Funny story, neither one of us got any collision damage waiver. And then shortly thereafter, I ended up taking another job and took my entire career on another direction. But our passions are powerful. Why? Well, it's because when we close our eyes and we enter into this imaginative world where we see what we're working towards, that lights our fire. You see passion. Yeah, there's passion if you see somebody that you think's an amazing, you want to go take them out on a date. Cool. That's not the passion that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you close your eyes, what you see, the world that you imagine, the goal that you see accomplishing, irrespective of what it is, that's something that motivates you. So we're talking about motivation. If your motivation coupled with pride or just a self-centeredness, if you focus too much on that, it can take you away from accomplishing your goal. It happens all the time. You see someone wanting to make partner. Okay, they're burning the hours at the company. They're taking all the extra deals. They're doing everything they can. Then 5 years later, their marriage is in disaster. Why? Because their passion, the universe of them, that passion overshadowed everything else in their life. And it happens. Does it mean they're bad people? No, we all do it. So the point of this isn't in the shame you and to make you feel bad. No, this is an awareness so that we are, we can go and identify and acknowledge the things that are possibly quite often keeping us from hitting our goals. Third thing, this one I'm gonna spend a little more time on. It's fear. One of the most powerful motivators known to man. Fear. Fear stops you from putting in applications. Fear stops you from going in and talking to the girl. Fear stops you from, it changes your behavior so you don't get fussed at. Well, I didn't like how I felt. The problem with fear is oftentimes we create realities that aren't necessarily so. I remember getting the call that I was a second lieutenant at the time, and we got the notification on a Sunday that we had wheels up. I think that Wednesday we were going to Iraq. And now I had trained my entire career. I had started out enlisted and gone to OCS and so forth, officer candidate school. But I had trained my entire time in the military to in case this was called upon me. I was ready. I was trained. But I sat by the fireplace, and I remember I was by myself. I sat by the fireplace, and I had this flood of emotions. Am I good enough? What am I going to be able to lead my soldiers? What happens if, we get a sucking chest wound or we hit a roadside bomb and such? And man, that went on and on for a good hour. And I put that aside because I'm a big proponent of saying things out loud. Well, Lawrence, you're prepared for this. You're trained better than most. You're going to do well. You can control the controllables. I ended up getting into an environment where that fear evolved into excitement, because what did it for me was the fact that I was in a unit at that point in time that wasn't combat arms, and I was trained in combat arms, and I felt that I was better prepared than some of the other officers in that unit to take care of my people. So I replaced my fear with a sense of duty, right? Um, I owed it to the soldiers that I led to give them my best. Our funny story, we had the family day before we left, and I told each one of my the family members and loved ones of my soldiers that I led, I told them, I can't guarantee that I'm coming back any more than I can guarantee your child, your son or daughter is going to come back, but they're going to get my best, right? So what started out as a fear evolved into this hyper attentive preparation, and that was something that I used to overcome that fear. But what happens when you're not as certain, when you're not as prepared? What happens when you move into a new job, new city, something that's new to you, and you don't have an inventory of experiences to lean on? That fear can dominate you. Fear is, it's something that we all experience. The problem that I see with fear is most oftentimes when we're in fear, we face it by ourselves. Could it be because of pride? Could it be because of shame? Could it be that you don't know what you don't know, that you should get help in this, right? What I would say, irrespective of where you land, we've all experienced it. When you realize that you're in fear, I am a big proponent of having an accountability partner that you can go and share with that's not going to judge you. Because most oftentimes, when you take a step back, much like I did by the fireplace, and I wish I could just show you, I got the notification, I sat down by the fireplace and I stayed there hands on my knees, just stayed there for about an hour, right? What happens when we, can't pull ourselves out of this? Get an accountability partner. Get somebody that's not going to judge you. Get someone that's going to come in and let you know, hey, it's going to be all right. I don't know what I don't know, but this is what I know to be true about you. And so for me, the simple solution outside of an accountability partner is focus on the things that are true. We're surrounded and bombarded with facts all day, every day. Can we get down to what's true? Because when we get to true, we don't allow our imagination to run rampant with us, right? And this happens again. This happens. No, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Doesn't mean that you're weak. What it means is that you're human. So when I look at our pride, this self-centeredness, that it's all about me. Our passions, which in many respects is a graduated version of all about me, and our fears, which says that I'm not enough. If we can check and monitor those three things, you're one step closer to hitting your goals. That's all we have for today, right? Be mindful of your pride, your fears, and your passions as we go about hitting our goals. Get an accountability partner and put your best foot forward. The world is counting on what you have. So what you have to offer, rather. So this is Dr. Lawrence. I'm signing off for the day. Remember, internal seeding yields external harvest. I'll see you next time. Take care. You remember the Lifesavers commercials that used to come on TV because they used to have all the colors and crap?
Right, yeah.
They don't have that anymore.
They don't have a lot of the cool commercials anymore.
No. Dude. So when you think about fear, the interesting thing about fear for me is we believe it. I guess I should have talked about that, but the challenge with fear is it's so convincing that we believe it. And it doesn't matter. You make a mistake, mom's going to, I'm going to get a whooping, or we don't whoop kids anymore. Probably what's going on. Anyway, I'm going to get a whooping. I'm going to get punished. I don't want to tell the truth because of this negative outcome. It paints a picture so vivid that we believe it. And when you believe something, that's where problems happen. Because when you believe something, you're going to act accordingly. We talked about that the other day. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, and so forth. When you believe something, you're going to act accordingly, and that's the problem with fear. And so much so, fear is a strong component in anxiety. So one of the talks that we gave about chronic stress was dealing with chronic stress has a lot to do with money. And when you think about people that they hate their job, or they stay because the money's good, but they hate it and they're having ulcers and just physical pain and such and so forth, the fear of being on my own. You stay in jobs that you hate because of fear. This is a true story. So before my mother passed, I was obviously in healthcare, and I hated my job. I was making all kind of money. It was crazy. Everybody was successful. Everybody was happy for me. Had a company car, expense account, all that kind of stuff. But I hated my job. Right? And year after year, I performed well. I was good at it. I could do it in my sleep. I did the job in my sleep, but I hated my job. And this older guy, I had the privilege of talking to this older guy, I believe on a hunting trip, and we were talking about that, and he said, "Why don't you leave?" And I was like, I kept coming up with these ideas, and he said, "Sound like you're scared to me. Sound like you're scared to me." I was scared. And then shortly after my mother passed, all of that went out the window. I was in an unhappy place, and that the feeling of being in an unhappy environment outweighed the fear of the unknown. And so I was, when I say get an accountability partner, I ended up doing this investment deal, and I made $10,000 in 4 hours. So I was like, wow. Okay. So when you look at the average hours that somebody can work in a year, 2,080 hours in a year, I multiplied that by $10,000. I figured out my efforts would produce $5 million a year. And I believed in me. I believed in, I would think back to the things that my mother would say. The last thing she told me was I needed to settle down and establish roots. And that it never left me. And so I started looking at what I was good at, what I enjoyed, what brought me joy. And so when I started delving into those things a little more, heavily, I found that the money flowed and the fear wasn't there anymore. And so my accountability partner at the time was a guy that had a similar situation. He left his organization because they wanted to move him to Florida. His dad was dying. He quit, and he started his little business that they ended up buying out. They bought him out like 5 years later for $30 million. So this is the guy that's advising me. I had no more fear because I stopped looking at that. Oh, what are you gonna do if you don't have an expense account? Change how you spend your money. Like, I was able to channel my efforts into what it was that and who I was, and the truth of who I was, and the passion that I bring to the things that I put my name to, and so forth, and the planning that I learned in the military, and just growing up the son of an entrepreneur and so forth. I had everything I needed, and that became more of a reality. I had no choice but to leave. And so I guess the thing that I would tell people is, if you're living in fear, is it a fact or is it a fiction? And I have a unique opinion about facts, but let me say it this way: is it the truth or is it fiction? Because facts are what they are. But at the end of the day, it is probably, fear is probably the most debilitating experience that you can have if you don't have the proper tools in place to negate the picture that's painted for you. So I would say that.